Tonight's event is being hosted by the Department of National Defence, but I want to thank city staff for their efforts to support D&D and ensure that the town hall can happen tonight. I want to thank D&D for showing your commitment to open conversations about your short, medium, and long-term plans for Yellowknife, including what's known and what's still being understood and planned. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to reflect on where we are and where we call home. The city of Yellowknife acknowledges that we are located in Chief Dry Geese territory. From time immemorial, it has been the traditional land of the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of all other Indigenous peoples, including the North Slave Métis and all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. I'd like to acknowledge some of the ministers, MLAs, city council members who are with us this evening. I know MLA Morse, MLAs Hawkins and Tessert are here, Councillor Cochran. I'm sure I'm missing a load of people in the room, so I apologize. Also give a welcome to Deputy Mayor Keith Dowie, SAO Glenn Smith, and Chair of the Hay River Economic Development Committee, Wally Schumann, who are here tonight, so welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for making the trip. As I said, anyone I missed, which I'm sure I did, I apologize. I'd also like to thank the representatives from D&D, the Canadian Armed Forces, and partner organizations who are joining us tonight. From the Royal Canadian Air Force, we have Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Baxter. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Thompson, I believe, is here. From NORAD, or from the Office of the Assistant Deputy Minister, Infrastructure and Environment, we have Mr. Daniel Thompson, Mr. George Siket, Ms. Carolyn Telewiak, Mr. Tariq Paracha, Canadian Operations Joint Command, Northern Operational Support Hubs. We have Lieutenant Colonel Caytlin Voss, Mr. Philip DeGrasse, and from Defence Construction Canada, Ms. Priscilla Vumi. As the NWT's capital, everything that happens in our territory, whether that is new or closing mineral developments, changes in tourism, or D&D investment, hits Yellowknife and the experience of us as Yellowknifers. On December 9th, 2024, as City Council watched the upcoming closure of Diavik and the struggle of other diamond mine operations, and as we watched D&D's first indications of seriously looking north again in a long time, Council unanimously passed a resolution identifying Yellowknife as an important place to invest to meet Canada's Arctic security defence policy objectives. This resolution mandated our city manager and his staff to work with D&D, the GNWT, and the Canadian Armed Forces to explore the potential available. That motion resulted in regular working discussions between the city, the GNWT, the federal government, and Indigenous governments, signed MOUs between Yellowknife and Inuvik, Whitehorse, and Iqaluit, signed contribution agreements for engineering work for new water and sewer lines to the airport that the city would not have been able to afford on our own, and today's presentation, and a full week of D&D on the ground in Yellowknife, and they've been meeting with a lot of you in this room already and having really good conversations. While many details are still emerging, tonight is your chance to hear directly from the Department of National Defence. It is your chance to ask questions in an open and respectful setting, and is an opportunity to ensure that your perspectives are part of the conversation from the start. For the city, our role is to ensure that you are informed. That's what tonight's about. But the city has worked with D&D to make tonight possible so that you can hear from them directly and not just us. So for that, I truly appreciate this full room that is obviously spilling out into the hallway. But because you didn't come here to listen to me either, I'm now gonna pass it over to our city manager, Stephen Van Dyne. Stephen's gonna introduce the presenters and then facilitate the conversation going on. So thank you again for being here, everybody, and over to Stephen.
Thank you, Mayor Hendrickson, and thank you all for coming tonight. Just wanted to acknowledge that this week took a lot of effort and a lot of teamwork across a number of organizations, including my colleagues at the Government of the Northwest Territories, as well as many of the utility companies and other development corporations and Indigenous governments that were part of the program this week. So thank you very much for your attention, your collaboration, your patience as we helped our colleagues at D&D put this program together. Tonight, I'll be turning it over very quickly to Colonel Baxter to walk us through the presentation. He'll call on colleagues to bring in portions of different parts of the presentation. They have been working on this hard, and they've got it clocked down to about 21 minutes and 32 seconds. So if you just want to keep an eye, there'll be nothing free given if you get it, if they go over, but that aside, we'll be able to have lots of time for questions, which is the whole purpose of the evening. With that, we are recording tonight's event. We are not doing live broadcast, but we are recording tonight's event so that those that may want to look at it later have the ability to do so that couldn't be with us this evening. In terms of question format, we are limited, unfortunately. You can blame the city. There's lots of things on your list, I'm sure, for that. But we have one microphone. And so what we're going to be doing at the end of the questions is, at the Q&A portion, is we'll be moving a microphone basically from stage left all the way over to this room. We're going to try and limit everyone to like one question for those that would like to speak. We'd like to keep it to a question versus commentary, but if you can keep it to a question, we'll do one round as much as we can over that way, and then we'll do a time check, and then offer an opportunity for another round. So if you're okay with that, we will turn it over to our colleagues at D&D, and I'll call on Colonel Baxter to present. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Van Duyn, Mr. Mayor, distinguished guests. So happy to be here. We've had a bit of a whirlwind tour of Winnipeg this week, meeting with all sorts of different groups. Nothing but warm welcomes. Yellowknife, sorry. I was there not too long ago, forgive me. No, it's been a great visit, and so let's get on to it. We'll talk about NORAD modernization, continental defense infrastructure, and the forward operating location here at Yellowknife. Our agenda, so NORAD mod, threats, sovereignty, security. We'll talk about the location, project delivery, capital assistance program, and the Northern Operational Support Hubs, followed by the Q&A. So why are we doing this? The North American Aerospace Defense Command is a very unique binational command between Canada and the United States. It's responsible for aerospace warning, aerospace control, and maritime warning in North America. Our NORAD modernization plan was announced in June 2022, and of course the Prime Minister was up in March to further affirm our plans going forward. What are we going to be doing? We're looking at a recapitalization, modernization, replacement, and a whole slew of infrastructure projects to critical infrastructure here and across Canada. So the forward operating location here in Yellowknife was built in 1985. We've been talking about technology and how it's evolved since that time, and the analogy you've been using is the phone we're used to in 1985 was the rotary phone, and we're on a full smartphone now, and it's just such a dramatic increase in technology that we have to catch up. You can't effectively support what we need to do and what we need to do in the future. So we're not just modernizing for right now, but out to 2040, and of all the things coming online, new aircraft and new fleets, we have to encompass that into our project. So it's going to support NORAD, but it's also going to support the Canadian Armed Forces domestic operations, including large-scale exercises, which many of you are probably familiar with the NOOC, and also with domestic response, think fires, floods, and response to community events. We're also going to integrate the RCAF, Royal Canadian Air Force fleet into this operation and new aircraft coming online over time. So it's quite a significant upgrade. And the goal of the FOL is to enable NORAD to rapidly deploy into the north and forward. So the actual FOL, if you're not familiar with the location, is by the airport. It's going to be expanded quite significantly. And on the left, there's the overshot of the airfield and airport itself, and a little bit of a zoom in on the right to the actual current FOL, which we're going to recapitalize in some form. This infrastructure, of course, priority is to support NORAD, northern basing, but also the defensive fighter infrastructure. So that's how we will support and house the fighters when they come north, but also the Northern Operational Support Hubs, which my colleague Caytlin will speak about at the end of the presentation. The fleet. So you've probably been around, if you've been in Yellowknife, you've probably seen the CF-18s come north. We're also bringing online our strategic tanker fleet, so that's when you see the air-to-air refueling of aircraft, and other aircraft as well, including the Globemaster and the Hercules. You won't see these all at once at the same time, but over time you'll see the entire fleet come through these locations. And I'll turn it over to my colleague George to talk a little bit more about the what.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here all week. And it's a pleasure to share the information that we're providing you this evening. So what is going to happen here? A few weeks ago, Prime Minister Carney was here in Yellowknife, and he made a big announcement on a very considerable amount of investments that are going to be made in the north. When we consider the NORAD mission and NORAD Northern Basin infrastructure, that money, those funds that have been allocated to the infrastructure project are going to occur in 4 locations. As you can see on the map over here, we're focusing in on Inuvik, Yellowknife, Iqaluit, and Goose Bay. So that money is going to be divvied up and proportioned across those sites. What exactly are you going to see? On the left-hand side of the screen, you've got the infrastructure elements, as we like to call them, which will be constructed here in this location and the other ones. In the next couple of slides, you'll actually see some of those representations of the infrastructure to give you a better idea of the size, scope, and scale of what we're going to be doing. There's a timeline that you see at the bottom of the screen. As Lieutenant Colonel Baxter mentioned, in 2022, the announcement was made to invest in the modernization of NORAD. Soon after that, we started the plans. So we started to define, or rather identify, and then define the requirements of this project leading up to that list that you see above. And as we go into the design, the preparation, and the construction, which will be done in phases, because we can't deliver all of that infrastructure in one shot, it's got to be done in a phased approach. The construction will start and it will go out to 2040. Now, beyond 2040, we're going to enter a situation as we have currently with the current forward operating location that we have here in Yellowknife and those other locations, is the maintenance, the operations and maintenance, so a steady state of operations going into the future. So there's lots of opportunities to maintain and be gainfully employed on these sites, but particularly here in Yellowknife. So when we talk about the hangars, and we had the term on the other slide, multi-platform hangar. The hangar is where, when required, the aircraft enters for some basic maintenance, some light maintenance, so it can carry on its duties, or get it out of the elements so it could be ready to go on a moment's notice. So it's a large shelter for the aircraft. And we can see the size and the scope of that on the left-hand side of the screen, where you have an aircraft entering the hangar. The size of that, if you want to equate it to something, would be the size of 6 NHL hockey rinks. Other hangars that already exist here, if you look at the Buffalo Airways hangar at the airport, that's a medium-sized hangar from our perspective. And that'll be housing medium-sized and smaller aircraft. And then we have smaller hangars that we're also going to build. There was also a term called an apron or a ramp. And on your left-hand side, on the right-hand side of the screen, pardon me, you've got a very large aircraft on a large slab of concrete and asphalt. That's an apron. And that's basically a parking lot for the aircraft that are not sheltered inside a hangar, that are outside in the elements, or they're transiting from a hangar to the taxiway to the runway. So that's an apron, and that's the size and scope and scale of what you are going to see here once that gets constructed. Other parts of the infrastructure that we're going to be building, well, we need to have some storage space, so we need to build some warehousing. So there's going to be a warehouse element to this. There's going to be an operations center where we can plan and control and execute operations that may go on when required. And then when military personnel are deployed to Yellowknife, as they are now, well, we currently have an accommodations block for the personnel. However, as Lieutenant Colonel Baxter said, the infrastructure that's built was built in 1985. It needs to be modernized and it needs to be expanded upon. So we're going to be building new accommodations for the personnel who are temporarily deployed to Yellowknife for the purpose of a limited scope operations. And what would it look like? So this is a concept, and I like to highlight the fact that it's conceptual only, but this is what we're working with at this point in time. This is what it may actually look like on the ground. So when you look at it from a bird's eye view, the current forward operating location is in the center. We're going to build new hangars for the future fighter fleet, which is the CF-35. We're going to build the small, medium, large size hangars. We need that apron space for aircraft to move around and get out onto the runways. We're going to have the accommodations building, the operations center, and other parts of infrastructure that are required to conduct NORAD operations and Canadian Armed Forces operations writ large. So this is what you can expect to see, maybe not in this representation, but something very similar. And I'll pass on the microphone to my colleague, Carolyn.
Thank you. So we've heard why we're doing this project and what the end project is going to look like. And now we're going to dive into the project delivery. So how are we going to do this? So we're very early in the project stages, but we are very busy and have prioritized doing some work. So we even have started doing some on-site studies to see what is out there on the space. So we're underway with our environmental site assessment, our species at risk. We're doing a geotech drilling program next winter, and some other very important studies. We will be doing further studies, and those will all be completed under our main design build contract within that contract. We do have a contract for concept design, so we are in that very conceptual start of the project. So we're looking at what the site might look like, and you saw earlier one of the options of what that layout and that the design might look like, and we're looking at other ones as well. So we really are still early in this project delivery. And the next part is our delivery approach. So we're going to be getting a modified design build contract. Within that contract, we're starting the contractor earlier, and we're getting them involved in the development phase. So starting in 2027, we're going to start our phase 1 of the project with that contract. We're going to do some very important work in that development phase. The first one being our Indigenous participation plan. So in collaboration with our Indigenous partners, D&D, we will be developing that plan with the contractor on what the participation will look like over the 3 phases of the project. So it's a very important first kind of work item. We'll also be doing a market analysis. So what type of businesses are available in the area, what type of capacity, and what that looks like, so that we can plan accordingly to make sure that we're maximizing our business opportunities. We'll be doing some other important work in this first phase, regulatory reviews. We'll be doing cost estimates and furthering those designs and bringing those 3 concepts we have right now into one solid concept for what the site is going to look like. So lots to do in that first phase, and it's going to happen fairly quickly. Then we move into the phase 2, that project definition, the design phase. So we won't be designing all of those pieces of infrastructure we saw earlier at the same time. We'll be designing them in phases, in sections. So we'll probably take the first 5 pieces of infrastructure and design those fully in that first phase of the design part. So between 2027 and 2030, we'll get some completed designs ready for construction. Also during that phase, we'll be doing some early construction work. So this won't be building the big hangars or building the big buildings. It'll be getting the site ready for that further construction phase. We currently anticipate the construction to last from 2030 to 2040. During that time, we'll still be doing design. So as I mentioned, we'll be designing those first packages initially, and then we'll be moving and designing the rest of the buildings and infrastructure throughout that phase. And so the biggest construction will be that 2030 to 2040 timeframe. Within the modified design build contract, they will be subcontracting work within that contract to deliver the project. So 2026, it's been an exciting year for us. We've been moving really quickly. A priority is communication. We're here today. We've been speaking with partners, organizations throughout the past few months. We came up here in November as well. So we want to communicate what we know. We're really in those early phases, but we want to share what we know. We know people are interested, and so we are prioritizing to make sure we're sharing as we move forward. So some of you may have seen, we posted back in January the advanced procurement notice. So that was the notice that told industry that we will be posting this project for bidding this year, or in the coming months. So the next step would be that request for proposal, so it's called an RFP, and that is anticipated to be posted in the fall of 2026 to publicly tender that contract. We work with Defence Construction Canada, and we have a colleague here from that team. They're our contracting authority, so they're the place where people go or businesses go for a point of contact with regards to procurement. So our Defence Construction colleagues will be organizing 2 business-to-business events, and these are great opportunities for businesses to get together, to interact with the project team and Defence Construction Canada to learn more about how they can prepare, get to know the other businesses in the industry and kind of work together. So there will be 2 sessions. The first one is going to be in Inuvik in June at the week of the Arctic Expo. And the next one, we're still determining the exact date, but it'll be either late summer or fall of this year. This is a very high level information of the security information, and there will be a lot more information at the business to business events, but this is some information that we have now. So for subcontractors looking at security requirements, we don't anticipate all work packages to have the same security requirements, but there will be work packages with security elements. So subcontractors would then work with our main contractor, who would then guide them through that process and so sponsor them through the security process. There may be other avenues to obtaining our security clearances, but we're still looking into that, and we'll have more information as we move forward. We've included some links on here about the contract security program and kind of share what we know and give more information. I'm going to pass this. Oh, it's still me, sorry. So we have a capital assistance program that we're using for this project. And it's a financial contribution to work that we need that's not actually on our site. So we'll be looking at doing some runway extensions at the airport, constructing some taxiways, so provide funding to complete those works, and also some utility extensions and upgrades to support the delivery of our project. And now I will pass it off to my colleague, Caytlin, for the Northern Operational Support Hub.
Thank you, Carolyn. In 2024, there was a defense policy update called Our North Strong and Free, where it was identified that the military needs to be able to improve our readiness and our reach into the north. $2.67 billion was allocated over a span of 20 years to help us achieve that goal. But if we're going to improve our readiness and improve our reach into the north, what we really need to focus on is improving operational sustainment for a variety of military operations. But how are we going to do that? So we'll first start with looking at infrastructure. We'll either do purpose-built infrastructure, or we'll renovate and recapitalize what already exists in our locations. And we'll also be considering dual-use infrastructure projects under the CAP program that my colleague Carolyn just spoke about. We've also got to pre-position materiel and equipment in these locations so that we can respond faster, sustain our own presence, and lessen our resource impact on some of the smaller communities. We'll call these sites either operational support hubs or operational support nodes, and it's going to be set up like a hub and spoke system. So when I talk about an NOSH, we love using an acronym. I want you to picture an airport. A hub is like a larger airport. People are going to flow in, they'll be reorganized, some will stay in the local area into the community, and some will be pushed further into different locations. It's going to be the same with material and equipment. It'll flow into the site, be reorganized, either stay or it'll be pushed further out. People will be required to work at the airport, so they'll be managing the flow and making sure that the operations are ongoing. And you'll be able to conduct maintenance at these locations as well. So if a vehicle breaks down or a plane breaks down, we'll have the ability to fix it. A node, same concept, just smaller. So a little bit less flights in, a little bit less people, but we're still able to support the operation out of that location. There's currently been 7 locations that have been identified to date. The first 3 were announced in March 2025 in Nuvik, Iqaluit, and Yellowknife, and they correspond with the NNBI locations. In March 2026, in the Prime Minister's announcement, 4 more locations were announced. There'll be a hub in Whitehorse, a hub in Resolute Bay, a node in Cambridge Bay, and a node in Rankin Inlet. Here in Yellowknife, the NOSH infrastructure will be delivered by my colleagues on the NNBI team. That brings us to the end of our presentation. We're looking forward to the questions and the conversation to follow. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time tonight. It's much appreciated. And if we flip to the last slide, you'll see that there's websites that you can go to, which will provide more information and further links for your research. And there's also an email address at the bottom. So if you've got any specific questions, you're welcome to email that email address as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was for the presentation. Just a word, the presentation is available. It's on the City of Yellowknife website, and if you would like to email the city, if you can't have trouble navigating it, we can make sure you get it. But it is available, and you can get access to it. In terms of the Q&A this evening, just a reminder that we're looking for 1 question per. We've got a little more people than I expected, so we're going to adapt the Q&A format just slightly. If I can ask people that do have a question, and we'll sort of from the muskox to the left of the muskox to the back of the room, that way, to form a bit of a line over on stage right next to Melissa, who's right there, for that side of the room, and then to the stage left side, if we can form a line down this side, and we'll do a alternation. We'll go 3 aside, and then we'll see how we go. So without any further ado, any questions? Yes. Okay, and just one other little room comfort note. The folks in the back, we do have a little bit of space further into the room, so if you feel comfortable just coming in and joining friends over closer to the back wall here, feel free just to give yourself a little more room. As you're formulating your questions, I'll pose one to the team, and I'll end here. So there's lots that can be taken away from this conversation. Lots of timelines. There's lots of different metaphors that one could use. I'm a metaphor kind of guy. So if you were to describe what we heard today, either as a sprint, a marathon, or a relay race, which of those metaphors would you apply to this situation?
Thanks, Stephen. So it's a sprint up front to get all our ducks in a row, leading to a marathon. So this is a long-term project. We are looking out to 2040, so we're trying to get moving fast. Investments have been made, and as everyone's seen on the news, the threats in the world are just increasing. So we want to make sure that we are ready and we are prepared to deal with all that's out there, and the sprint up front leading to the long-term investment marathon.
So I'll chime in on that one, because I see it from a different lens from my colleague and good friend here. I see it more of a relay race, because there's a lot of people and a lot of organizations involved. We've got the Royal Canadian Air Force, who are providing us with the infrastructure requirements. Then there's the engineering arm that's then defining those requirements. And then we hand it off to Defence Construction Canada, who's then going to hand it off to a contractor, and the contractor is going to have subs, and they're going to start doing the build, and there's going to be a lot of people involved, and then there's the further maintenance of the site. So it is, in my view, it could be a sprint because we need to get things done quickly, but it's also a relay race. So it's long-term, it's far out, and it's starting now.
There you go. Aha. And they did not get that question in advance. Do we have people? We do have some questions. So, okay, and we've got on both sides. Okay, so let's start on my left, stage right.
Thank you. I have a question about the conversations that we're not having. We're not having about the whole modernization project in terms of its impact on climate, its social impacts, its environmental impacts. These are the conversations that we usually have whenever we're doing an impact assessment of such a major project. And we've skipped that. And these are important conversations to have. So I guess my question is, how are we going to deal with those concerns?
Thank you for the question. As we said earlier, we are really early in this project, so we're not missing the boat on diving into these important topics. So we are starting to do some site work. We're going to be doing the environment assessment coming up. It'll take a whole year, and then we'll be developing plans and following all the regulatory processes and doing the due diligence. So we're starting the process.
I think we'll do 3 in total, and then we'll switch to this side. Yeah.
Hi, I believe you mentioned that NORAD is a relationship between Canada and the States. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So given the current state relationship, how is that impacting the work that's being done in any way? Or is that being impacted?
So the binational command, I was actually down in Colorado Springs about a month ago, and the relationship is very strong and very tight. There's a lot of political level things going on in the media and between the two governments, and so I leave that to my superiors and then the Prime Minister to work out those details. But I would say military to military, very strong and long-standing great relationships. I've had the privilege of living and working in the United States as an exchange officer for several years and made great friends, long-term friends, and it's good. So it's not impeding us. We're working together to get where we need to get to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. The last responder to a question mentioned environmental assessment. Can you tell me precisely what kind of environmental assessment this project is going to go through? Is it going to be under the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act? Because that's the place where things like noise impacts, stresses on community infrastructure, social fabric, all of those sorts of issues can and should be reviewed. So is this going to be subjected to an environmental assessment under the MVRMA? Thanks.
So we have some really good environmental experts that aren't here, but I do know that that we will be diving into a preliminary review process through that Mackenzie Valley process. But again, more information to come as we move forward.
Okay, we'll switch to this.
So I'm wondering what the city and DND are doing to improve transparency, communication, and emergency coordination during the ongoing infrastructure upgrades that may affect our utilities and essential services. As many of us experienced this past winter, we experienced a brownout when we were near capacity, which led to power loss, heat loss, frozen water and sewer lines, and expensive property damage. This took our local companies, some of them 8 weeks to fulfill all of the frozen lines. This cost people a lot of money in their insurance. And I'm also wondering how we're going to be making sure that those businesses know that these things are happening ahead so that there's capacity that can be met.
Thank you very much for your question. So to mitigate the power draw, the water draw, the services and utilities draw, what was mentioned earlier was we have the Capital Assistance Program. And through the Capital Assistance Program, we provide funding to the power companies, to the water, so to the city, so to improve that infrastructure. We by no means intend to be a burden on the community, on the city. So we've already started engaging with the city in terms of waterworks. We've started to engage with the NTSP, so the Northwest Territories Power Corporation. We've met with NACA. We've met with Tallston Hydro. And we're looking at all of the different opportunities to help support the improvement of the power grid so that we do not become a burden on the day-to-day life of Yellowknifers. So those discussions have already begun, and the funds are available to support those projects. So, we're supporting the D&D operations as well as we're supporting the community. So this is occurring, and we will be there to support.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Can you speak a little bit more to engagement, consultation, and project update opportunities going forward for the general public, like this town hall, and more select groups like the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation, the CJOC government, and the North Lake Métis Alliance?
Communication is a priority for this project. That's why we're here today, even though we don't have all the answers that I'm sure that everyone is looking for. We have started and we'll continue to speak to all groups. We met this week with many partners, organizations. We've been meeting since well before the fall, and so we will continue that. We have started conversations. We continue at the pace and regularity that is being requested, and so we will keep up the discussions.
Masi, thank you for coming and thank you for the presentation and welcome to the Northwest Territories, the land of my ancestors. I am very concerned of the NWT security infrastructure of the NWT healthcare system, and also how is the Canadian military going to secure the international security in the air, land, and water? Will the Canadian government impose all incoming people to Canada do a criminal record check prior to entering Canada? The whole NWT will be impacted, and the government should secure the highways, air, land, and water, because I come from a small community, and when something happens, and I also suggest that the Canadian government purchase a STARS helicopter for Yellowknife because the hub will need that. I'm gonna tell you something that as in the Northwest Territories and born here all my life, 1,000 years, and my family and friends are from the NWT and will not leave. But I am concerned for the safety of my family and my friends and the people and the future. So my question, and I want to ensure that the government impose criminal record checks on all incoming people into Canada prior to entering. Because when we want to leave Canada, we have to do a criminal record check for our passport. So if you're going to come in, same thing should apply to you. Because I come from a small community that doesn't have a hospital or emergency services or doctors. Some communities don't have highways, do not have RCMP. And we are getting people that come in on the highway. I have my cousin. My cousin's son was shot dead. And it took 16 hours for the RCMP to remove his body. Took off. Whenever there's a call, the call goes into Yellowknife, then it goes back to Fort Providence, then the RCMP are dispatched. So at the same time, our people are impacted because we do not have control and security on the highways, land, and air. We do not have any clearance of who is entering or what criminals are coming, because my cousin was shot, who was let go on the prior conditions in Inuvik. He left, went back to BC, came back with a gun. And the result, my cousin had to bury his son. So I am very concerned for the next 7 generations that this whole project, and I welcome this project because it's going to secure the North and for the rest of the people. And the North finally will prosper, and the Indigenous people will finally get a hearsay because they're always at the end, always at the bottom of the chain. It's about time they're on top. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing. There was a lot there, and yep. So.
Thank you very much. So from your concerns about security, we share those as well. The portion of the pie that we're dealing with is the air security, and that's why we're doing all these improvements so we can patrol, we can deter, we can detect threats, and we can deal with them up in the North. A lot of people in the room are hearing exactly what you're saying, and I'm sure Border Services also shares your concerns about security, so thank you for your question.
Thanks for coming and sharing your plans for this amazing project. My question has to do with existing amenities and resources that are located on the land at our 3 diamond mines. So they're in various stages of closure, and they have valuable resources, facilities, power generation, airstrips. Could you take a look at those sites in a way that might complement the sovereignty and defense projects of Canada, and in particular with avoiding the unnecessary waste of materials?
Thank you for the question. With the Northern Operational Support Hub program in particular, one of the tenets of our program is to look at communities specifically. So while we acknowledge that there's infrastructure available at some of the mine sites, what one of our goals is with the influx of funds from the Capital Assistance Program to be managed in a way where it can impact a smaller community by lengthening an airstrip or improving the energy infrastructure or improving the water infrastructure. We're also basing our site selection around the operational requirements of the Canadian Armed Forces, and at this time there's still evaluations ongoing for sites all over the North. At this particular time, we've got the 7 sites selected, and we're going to be focusing on that for the near future. But thank you very much for your point.
I would maybe just add just a little bit that D&D is a very large organization, and within D&D, they also have a minister's office, and within the larger apparatus there. So rest assured that at least some companies have been making it known to the Government of Canada about those assets that have just been mentioned, and making sure that the Department of National Defence is aware of their existence, and the like. So we may not have everyone here representing D&D, but rest assured that those assets are being advertised. So with that, we'll take another 2 questions from over here.
Thank you, Stephen. My name's Garth Walbridge. I'm a lawyer here in Yellowknife, a grandfather, and all of that. I grew up on military bases. I understand they're great economic drivers. What I would like to know is that what we heard in the presentation was an awful lot of people coming and going from the airport. I'm sure there will be people residing in Yellowknife. There's going to be a lot of full-time employees who stay here. What's the estimate on that number? I'm curious, because that's got to be a big economic driver for the city, the new housing that's going to be needed, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Garth. So from the NORAD Northern Basing Infrastructure perspective, we know we're going to increase our numbers, but we haven't quite got to that point yet of deciding exactly how many. From the Joint Task Force North perspective, I believe that they're potentially growing over time as well, but I'm not aware of those numbers. You'll see an increase. We're increasing our numbers across the entire country, and we're on a recruiting drive right now. If anyone's looking for a a new job or something to do, we're definitely hiring. But it's going to increase, but we haven't got down to those details as of yet. We're just at the very beginning.
And we were just recently informed that there's going to be a recruiting office here in Yellowknife, stood up for the first time in a long time, representing all, to recruit for all 3 territories. So, FYI, stay tuned. One more.
Masi Joe for being here, and it's obviously much needed given the spilling attendance that you've got. It's sort of a follow-up to Garth's question. I'm more concerned about housing. Will it be sort of set aside and keeping the military aside, or will it be more integrated into the community of Yellowknife, just given how much housing here is such a difficult across Canada? Masi.
Thank you very much for your question. So, as we mentioned earlier on, the barracks that we're going to be building for the forward operating location are there for, we call them transient quarters. So as we do have now, we've got a very small footprint, and those facilities can take up to 200 military personnel when they do come up and activate the forward operating location. For the future, that is going to grow, and it's going to be a larger location. But again, it's there for when we activate the forward operating location. It's there for when there's an Op Nanook. So recently, in the month of February, March, there was Operation Nanook that took place, and it was staged out of Yellowknife. Those facilities were used for that purpose. And you also may have seen some tents and all that go up aside next to it, but that's pretty much the concept of operations for that site. Is it's activated, it's used, the facilities are there to accept the military personnel, and then once they're done, they pack up and go back. So it's transient, and it's used when it's required for operational purposes. Thank you.
We're tracking at the city three phases of housing. One being what was just described, that will be at the forward operating location and improvements. Second would be construction and any temporary worker accommodation that might be required as a result of said construction. And the third is pointing to any long-term JTFN or other D&D presence that might be here longer term, integrating more into our regular fabric. And so I believe that you all know that JTFN here and its earlier configuration have been here since 1970, and they've blended into our community quite nicely, and we'd like to see that continue.
Thank you for your presentation. As I understood from the presentation, it's a long-term project. The construction, as you said, will start after 2030. So my question is around the execution of the project. In the upcoming 14 years, many things may change. The political environment within the country, outside of the country, economics will change of the country. So how insulated this project is from the external factors?
Thank you very much for that question. So in essence, the funding has been already approved by the government. So the government of Canada has approved the $32 billion that is needed to build this infrastructure here. So that's there. And our job now is to go to the Treasury Board and request that funding so that we can prove to the government that we're spending it responsibly. So right now, we have tremendous momentum, as you can see, and as you know in the news. It's important to the government, it's important to national defense, it's important to the people, and the money has been allocated for this project. So we're in a very good position to say that we're assured that even if a different government comes to power, the money has already been approved and set aside for this project. So we're in a good position. Thank you.
Hello, Bobby Dragus from Yellowknife Dene First Nation. Welcome to Yellowknife. Home at Yellowknife Dene First Nation, and been here for thousands of years, and I think I'm the only one that can say that here. So, a lot of times, like with the First Nation, you guys never went to Deda or Dilo to talk to us about like a town hall meeting or anything like that. I was wondering if that's going to be happening, and because for us too, like we've been here for thousands of years, we have to make sure we try to maintain as much as possible. And there is like the water that's really really scary for us too, because the city wants to use the bay, which is full of everything. So we have to watch all that, because like even myself, I got sick from arsenic, I got cut up and everything too, so I don't want nothing like that to happen to people. So if you guys can help out with the water system, getting the water from the river, with the piping, with the infrastructure and all that too, because I know the military is going to need a lot of water as well too. So if you guys can do that, because like my kids are here, my grandkids are here, they're going to be here for years and years, and I have to make sure that we prepare for the future, especially with Yellowknife Denny, because like I heard that you guys even talked to the Don't Show yet, which is kind of crazy, because you're in Yellowknife here with Chief Jaggers territory, because we're Dots on Tene, we're Copper Indians, and you guys need to know the history, so you guys should be coming over to us and talking to us and making sure, because there's a place in the highway called Boundary Creek. It's called Boundary for a reason. You guys got to think about that too, so because Tincho on that side, us we're on this side. So we always got to remember like where you are and what you're doing. And for us, it's scary too, because giant mine is a big thing. And is there a plan B for what you guys are doing? Because there's an earthquake fault line that's close to where the giant mine is too, and it's kind of scary if that thing moves, or if there's a backup plan that you guys will have for Yellowknife Denny people, and to bring people out, to make sure they're safe. But that's what I'm worried about, everybody's safety, or thinking about everybody's thing, and for the contracts and all that kind of stuff too, where you're here in Yellowknife, you should be coming to us first. So it'll be really good. Merci.
Thank you very much for your question and expressing your concerns. So earlier on in the planning of this trip here, this visit this week, we were considering going to Deda. However, due to the restriction of our time, and it's not a good excuse, I'm sure, but we decided to meet with the leadership of all three nations. So we met with the Yellowknife Denny YKDFN, we met with NMSA, we met with CJOC. Our goal and intention is to meet with everyone as much as possible, but this week was focused on the leadership of all three nations, and this evening was focused on the citizens of Yellowknife writ large. So that we're here today to start that communication. We were here in the month of November, and we also met with all three organizations. So we're doing this as a continuous effort to meet with people. In the future, we do plan on meeting with the people out in Deda and in other communities. We want to be open and transparent as possible in what we're doing and in our communications. So please rest assured that we will come to you and we will meet with you on your land, at your site, in your location. Thank you.
Good evening. It's great to see that there's going to be an investment in airports. We're very grateful for that. One thing though that does come to mind, construction. There's a lot of different kind of groups within an airport. Transport Canada has regulations, the D&D has their own regulations. Depending on how the planning goes or the communication goes, there can be a lot of restrictions, and typically at the end of the day, the commercial operator is the one that pays. Can't land when the weather's bad, can't lift as much freight, and I mean, all these communities are the end of the road, so, supporting communities that are fly-in only. So, it's very imperative that there's a good plan, good communication. So I guess my question is, who is going to be kind of the group in charge of these airport upgrades, and how are we going to, get all the players to the table and make sure that, because it's a 10-year project, obviously we can't restrict all these communities that rely on these hubs too much.
Thank you very much. So in terms of the airfield upgrades here in Yellowknife, as we presented, our capital assistance program is going to be there to support the airfield upgrades with the extension of the runway and the building of taxiways. That will be extremely beneficial to the local operators because we're actually providing longer length of runway so that in winter time when there's icing and that and there's skids, you have a longer runway to land on. You also have taxiways to clear off of once that aircraft lands and then could take an alternate route to get to the terminal. We're in lockstep with the airport and GNWT with their project for Northern Gateway for the construction of the new airport terminal. So what we are doing it in collaboration with GNWT and the airport to make sure that the local operators also benefit from the investments and the construction that we're bringing here to the airport. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And my question is related to the scope of medical facilities being planned in Inuvik and Yellowknife. And will there be consultation exploring opportunities for dual use in areas such as virtual care and improved health communications, and probably other areas that I'm not thinking of but could be addressed through consultation? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Insofar as the scope of our project, we are not looking at that. That's a separate aspect of the Department of National Defense, and it is outside of scope for our project. So I do not have an answer for you at this time. However, you have the links, and you can ask our media relations, and if you seek to pursue that, you will surely find an answer. Somebody will get back to you. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. My question relates to a bit of the iceberg under the surface. Former CJOC desk officer, where the OSH was actually in my folder, so I'm fairly well versed in the concept. But housing. We are fortunate to have rental properties here in town, and we just put one up for rent next week and had almost 200 applicants from locally living people who were already struggling to find housing. We also just recently housed several of the drywall contractors in our rental properties that were working on the MPB. They came up from Leduc. They were not local contractors. All these contracts are going to outside of Yellowknife. Many of your speakers keep boasting about the jobs that are going to be coming. I'm not sure if you're aware that most of us in the public sector are struggling to staff our jobs. Yellowknife has pretty much an all-time national low 3.5% unemployment rate. We are not looking for jobs here. We're looking for housing. So everyone keeps talking about money. The press releases keep talking about money. There's all kinds of capital money coming, but money doesn't put roofs on houses. And I need to see a solution to what the housing shortage is going to have. We have military families posted to JTFN this week in town doing house hunting trips, and they're leaving in tears because they can't find anything. They can't buy. They're in bidding wars, and there's nothing available in the rental economy. So what's the solution that is coming with this project?
Thank you very much. So for NNBI, on the tour around speaking with everyone in Yellowknife, it's come up often, and we're going to have to take this back because it's outside of my lane to speak to. So I'm going to take this back to Canadian Forces Housing and put a bug in their ear to take a look. Thank you.
That'd be a good question for the mayor to
No problem. Genuinely though, the reason I say no problem is this is something that we're singularly obsessed with at City Council. There's no easy answer. Obviously, if there was, we wouldn't be in the pickle we're in. This is an issue that goes back decades in Yellowknife. Access to land is our single biggest problem right now. As you know, in our last community plan, a lot of you will know, and we're working on our new one, so please engage on that as well. We had no land availability through that last community plan cycle. This was the previous council had to grapple with this. That's why everything was focused on infill and filling those gaps in the community as it exists. Something we've been working on and has been my almost singular obsession, other than having to get into a lot of national defense conversations, which, new for a city over the last while. But my singular obsession has been working with the government of the Northwest Territories, the cabinet, to try and progress the movement of land to the city. And I appreciate our MLA colleagues in the room who have been helping the city on that front. So I have no immediate answer. There is no immediate answer. And now I finally see where you were sitting. But the next steps from a municipal perspective are, from our community plan, having that land transfer from the government of the Northwest Territories to the city, so that we can then work on getting that to market, so that more housing can be built in our city. And that's, I know, not a simple, easy tomorrow answer, but it is the answer. We need more opportunity for land and housing to be built. And a big part of the opportunity that's available through what's going on here is to help us build the infrastructure, as Mr. Siket was saying, whether that's water and sewer through the city, or the work that they'll be doing with Power Corp and NACA on the power side of things, to help us move things that have been stalled for a long time. And we simply, as a municipality, as you all know, do not have the funds on our own to support. So I'll stop there. But whether it's here tonight or city council meetings, or as residents know who you've reached out to me in the past, I'm always happy to talk to you about this and dig in a little deeper on these issues. So that offer's always on the table. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. And I think my question is in line with what was just said. Can you speak to the skills development so that with this major project, we don't get back to the flying in and flying out where the money is spent on the paper, but it flies over our head. And we make sure that our local business community benefit from it, and people who are actually working here, the money stays here, pays the tax here, is spent here, profit to the community. And we have the skill set, a plan to develop, attract those talents, have them stay here, develop them here, so that in the long phase of the project, either at the inception and the building and the maintenance, people who are doing all that, most of them come from here. Can you speak to that?
Thank you. This is something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about. We've spent a lot of effort, and it is very important. We don't have the full solution yet. We haven't completed the market analysis. We don't know exactly what's out there, what type of skills are available, and what needs to grow. And so we'll be working with our colleagues at Defence Construction Canada and with our contractor to try to prioritize that work and develop some plans. So we don't know yet, but we hear you, and we really appreciate the comment and the question.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Cynthia. I'm a local business in town. I have my own question, but just wanted to quickly emphasize the breaking scope so that local capacity would be able to benefit from this infrastructure. We have seen drive-by, fly-by infrastructure and money not staying in the north, so definitely hoping that this is something that the north would benefit from. My question today is with regards to the new, the proposed facilities and how this would integrate with current businesses in Camp Lake and Engo District. We've heard scary terms like you're in the explosive zone. How does it work? How are we gonna work close to the tank farm? And you guys proposing this big infrastructure, how is it gonna integrate? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, there are plans for an ammunition storage facility. That facility will be temporary in nature, so we do not plan on storing ammunition for the fighter jets here on the long term. So when they come up, they have to have a place to remove their munitions, to then store them and then take them away with them as they leave. Or, in the case of an operation, they may have to use them. But the danger template is all templated out. The area that we're looking at for this ammunition storage facility provides us enough room that it's safe for the people around, people traveling on Deschaux Boulevard, etc. And there's also mitigation means that we can to mitigate if an event would happen with different walls and berms and stuff. So the impact is minimal or negligible, and there's no danger to the citizens because the mitigation strategies are going to be built into anything that we do. Thank you.
Hi there. Hello. I'm a local resident, and I sort of do have two questions, but the first one is directed toward the city. Is as we get our capital funding and it helps with infrastructure, what's our tax base increase going to be as this project evolves? Right, it's the high cost of living here is felt by everybody. I mean, the infrastructure is not in the best shape, but we do pay lots of taxes, and just wondering how that's going to work out for us.
Thank you very much for the question. So that is a very significant preoccupation of council, and we are encouraged from administration to factor that into all the advice and all the planning that we're doing to date. The short form of it to this question is we're working closely with D&D to attract the capital dollars to do the main infrastructure, so that doesn't come at a cost of the city at the moment. So, but I think your question gets to operation and maintenance, right? So there lies the where we need to be careful, and we're trying to be careful. So the careful question is addressed a couple of ways. One, we're encouraged by the fact that this infrastructure may encourage other development that will allow us to raise some revenue just naturally without necessarily applying a tax increase of any sort. Natural growth to the city, and that's typically the way that vibrant communities work. A little bit of growth means that the burden of the cost of the city is spread over more people, more places. Therefore, the spike doesn't have to be, or the pressure doesn't have to be borne on a small group of people. So that's the theory. The second piece that we're looking at is that the federal government also pays their bills. And so they are going to be responsible for lands, and as a result of those lands that they're occupying, that they will be doing a transfer. And we're working closely with the government of the Northwest Territories to make sure that all of the eligible payments that the federal government can do naturally, not under duress, but under on all of the tools that are there to make sure that ongoing operations are accommodated through their regular payment schedule that they would do as a land occupier and user of our lands and facilities. We're not doing rebuttals. Sorry.
You didn't really answer my question, but
so
you told me what your thoughts are and what the process is and all that good stuff, but just a straight question. Maintain an infrastructure, operate an infrastructure costs money.
yes.
You're going to hire staff, you're going to have parts, you're going to have shipping, repairs, all that good stuff comes with the north. So if you say a natural progression, yeah, it's actually going to go up.
Well, so I don't have a crystal. Well, there's death and taxes, right? I mean, those are the two things. But so.
I don't like to die.
Yeah, none of us do. Yeah. Yeah. So in addition, that is the overlying lens in terms of making sure that we've got a sustainable growth in the community, is making sure that we're making sure that everyone that is supposed to be contributing is able to contribute. And as the new entrants, every indication from the Department of National Defense is that they will pay all their bills, including operations,
So
which then...
There will be offered a reduced rate of taxes for being government.
So this is a whole other, you can AI it, but there is a relationship between the Government of Canada and other levels of government on how they transfer funds, and we're going to be making sure that that they pay attention to that. Yeah, so. No, thank you.
This is Canadian money. Are we sticking to Canadian companies and keeping the American companies out of Yellowknife and basically build this Canadian?
So the question that you snuck in there, that extra one, and I'll grant you an exception. The question was, of the Canadian investment that's going in to build these facilities, will we be using Canadian product, Canadian services, Canadian materials? And I believe the answer is absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello there. Oh, that was loud. That was a wicked awesome presentation. And my question is, we are building a military base here, right? So does that put a target on our back from foreign entities? Does the F-35s you got coming up here, are they just temporary? Are they going to be up here all the time? Or are they just up here to shoo away when the Russians come, you know, like... I don't know.
Thank you.
Puts a target on their back, I guess. Thanks.
So the threat increase is no more increased here in Yellowknife than it is anywhere else. And in Canada, when the F-35s come up, they come up on a periodic basis. So they come up to detect, deter, and defend, and then they go back to their home base locations, which are in Cold Lake and Bagotville.
Thanks.
Hi again. This isn't a question that needs to be answered today, but Lois had said something about doing socioeconomic, and I really believe that. And I think one of the things that needs to be considered is, it's wonderful, and I'm fully supportive of what's going on here, but there's a lot of homeowners, apartment, condos, duplexes, like those of us lucky enough to have a home. One of the things that we often struggle with when there's big projects, whether it's a new hospital, where it's the field house, is suddenly all of the contractors are working for the big project. And so you see homeowners not being able to get contractors, not being able to get tradesmen to come and do. And so there's almost like a decrease in home maintenance because of these. It's very difficult. And I guess I want to pose that to you when you're thinking about your socioeconomic. The pre-existing buildings that are here, how are you going to continue to support that? And I don't need an answer now.
Thank you.
Unless you want to.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I noticed in the infrastructure list that you had there, you had medical facilities listed there, and I'm wondering, I sort of assume that that's for like your military personnel, but certainly like over the duration of the project, there is going to be an increased pressure, I would say, put on our existing health system. And I'm wondering if there has been any sort of conversations or thoughts towards how you know, our existing health infrastructure can be supported during this project.
So thank you for your question. And yes, you're correct that the medical facility that's listed on that list of elements that we're going to be building is part of the medical requirement to support military personnel when they're deployed on operations here. So like the example of the F-35s coming up here and then going back to their home base, when the military personnel come up here, there'll be a minimum medical staff, and they will support those who are deployed, and then they will go back to where they come from. The larger question about the contractors who will be coming up here and will be working on the project, those things are still considerations that need to be considered. We need to discuss that with the Defence Construction Canada and the potential contractor, and make sure that the contractors that are here are not overpowering and overburdening the society. So these are all very important discussions that we have yet to get into the details about, but they are first and foremost in our mind, but we need to then flesh all that out and find a solution. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. I think I'm going to ask a question that's kind of got hammered out here in the last little bit, but I'll still go for it. When the contracts are being sent to tender by the Defence Construction Canada, will there be a framework in place to confirm and control the funds remain in the north? We're all well aware that almost all multi-million-dollar projects are awarded to southern companies, and that money is flowing out of the north. Giant Mine, the New City Lift Station being examples of this. We need reassurance that this money will actually boost our economy and not the economy of the cities these companies and their workers reside in. We are a town of small companies that work together to complete projects, but over the last 10 to 15 years, this has been replaced by multinational companies that win these contracts and pull the money earmarked for our economic growth into the pockets of these companies that come for the money and leave the town to chase that money elsewhere. So I guess the question, to sum that up, will there be a northern hire commitment that goes beyond what is currently in place in the north? Because it doesn't work. There's a lot of times where these southern companies come up and pay people to stay home because they'd rather use their own workers, and we know that there's probably only 10 companies in Canada that could complete this project for you. So I know you said you brought up the business to business, face-to-face. If we can't get face-to-face with the primary contract winner, we'll never have a chance to get involved until it's so far down the line. So maybe if that could be something set up when that contract's been awarded, we could get a chance to do something with the business owners of the town.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. We hear you. This is why we're here early. We want to hear what are the concerns in the city, and this is one that we've heard a lot. So there will be one, as we mentioned, the one main contract that will be coming out. But then in addition to that one contract, there's going to be a lot of subcontracts. And when we're talking about these, there are going to be a whole range of sizes. So there's going to be multiple ways that we're looking at bringing people and kind of getting them working on site. So in addition to that one big contract, there's going to be a lot of other contracts that are stemming from that one. And so it's a long time that we'll be here, and there'll be a lot of contracts and lots of work happening. So it is a priority of ours, and we will work to continue to prioritize that.
I'm born and raised here. My question to the military, and I thank you for your presentation as well, but my question to you is, what kind of housing are you looking for? For the contractors, the real estate people in the room, what are you looking for? Do you want single family, you want apartments, you want townhouses? That's the first thing we should know so that we can fight with the city for land to develop on your behalf. My second point I want to make, and I look around the room for Marvin Robinson, I can't find him. You people in the room have no idea. I'm the only person here that is built on the airport, and the city has no jurisdiction. The entire construction is supported and built through Edmonton. So if they want to build a hangar tomorrow, the city can't say no. They're on federal government land, and they go ahead and build a building. You guys be aware of that. They're being very nice by coming here and speaking to you, but the city can't stop them. We can't stop them. Understand that. This is a puppet show, and you're being informed of what's coming and going to happen. And the fire marshal's got a little bit of power, but that's about it. If they want to build a building, they will build a building. I've built 2 on the airport, and nobody else in this room has done it. So let me tell you, having dealt with the fire marshal, the city, you have to show them your plans, but Edmonton controls the process. So they have a lot of power, and you got to deal with Edmonton. You submit your drawings to the city to tell them what they're doing. They tax you based on what you're doing, but Edmonton controls the process. I just thought I would share that with you because there isn't one of you in here that have done it or seen it done. And it's not a little practice either. I had to dig down I think I went down 14 feet on the airport to get 110% compaction before I could put up the hangar for Air Tindy. We put 12 by 12 pads down to stop the uplift. There's a lot of technical stuff in there, and the hangar he's talking about is going to be magic. To watch it being built will be a pleasure and a real eye-opener for anybody in this room. So understand those things. If they're coming, they're coming. Let's support them. Let's get it done. Let's make sure we know what they want so we can build on their behalf or help build on their behalf. And when it comes to the power infrastructure that they want and need, convince them to put a small nuclear reactor here like they're building in Ontario so that we don't run out of power. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
So thank you very much for your comments and your question. I would like to say that although we are the Department of National Defense, we're not that powerful as you may think. So I'm going to ask Phil to go back a couple of slides to our concept. No, we're not talking about that. So I'm going to talk about the land, and you're all I'm hoping that you're all familiar with the airport land. And in the center of this rendition, that's where the current forward operating location is. So as we go towards the left side of the screen, which is the north, that's airport land, and that belongs to the government of the Northwest Territories. And then what's to the south, so the right side of the screen, that's city land. And then there's a couple of parcels of land that you see that tan-colored parcels along Decho Boulevard. Those are privately owned, and what we're doing currently is, so we cannot build on that land without acquiring it, without leasing it. So we're in the midst of discussions with the city and with the government of Northwest Territories and the private owner of that land to acquire it. So either by lease, by purchase. So, and until that happens, we cannot build on it. So it's not up to us to say and dictate what we're going to do. We're being, again, fully transparent with our process and our methods. And then once we do get the authorization, we do get the permits, because we have to pay for those permits. So it's not a free ride for the government of or the government of Canada or DND. We still have to acquire those permits and pay for it and pay our share. Then we will begin the construction of hangars and infrastructure. But until those lands are properly and legally acquired, then we will begin the construction. So those conversations and discussions are already underway with the city and the GNWT. And once we get them resolved, then we will continue with our project. Thank you.
And I believe the other aspect on the housing question, I'll just go back to the mayor's comments. It's a live issue for the city. It's not just D&D going on in here. We've got our own housing shortage currently that we need to pay attention to, and there's other projects that might be on the horizon, and so all housing types are being explored, and we're doing that with a brand new, hopefully newly approved community plan to help guide us in the not too distant future. So we have one questioner left right now, and I'm sure there's other questions, and that's great. And so we're now potentially ready for multiples. I would like to say that we booked this evening from 7 to 9, and despite the fact that this is a military presentation, you're not obligated to stay till 9. You can leave at any time. And we will, but we will take questions for the next little while. So I'll go to our questioner over here.
Thank you for the time. My question is to do with economic integration and the impact that this project will have in Yellowknife and the communities in the north. You had mentioned that defense contractor will hold the official contract of resources for this project, and they will subcontract as required to be able to get the resources needed to execute this project. My question is twofold. One, the military has been in the north for some time. How big or small is the footprint of the military in engaging local companies or contractors to make sure that resources that they need in terms of skill set can be procured locally? Because that would have ensured that the funds that comes from the project will stay in the north to benefit the communities. That's my first question. My second question is, if the contract is going to be held by defense procurement and they kind of source out as required, is there specific conditions within those contracts that would ensure that northern resources are being considered? Because you have young graduates, you have college people who are coming out of here that sometimes it even becomes difficult to find placement for these young ones. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. There were so many good points in there, so I'm trying to kind of pull those back together in a response. So as my colleagues mentioned earlier, that there hasn't been a lot of big defense infrastructure money put in the north in a long time. And so we are learning from what's happened in the past, but we're also kind of a really big project compared to what we have seen in the past many years. So we're learning from what we have seen, and we're learning from other major projects. We're learning from organizations. So we're trying to learn, we're trying to understand what that market is, and we won't know a lot until we do the market analysis. So we hear that there's a lot of businesses interested, but we don't know what kind of businesses that are out there and have availability and what type of training or employment. And so we really need to know what's out there first, and we hear you, and we are taking those next steps. So more to come, yeah.
Sorry, you didn't answer my question as to what kind of housing you're looking for, apartments, single family, townhouses, or what?
Yes.
So to follow up, the Northern NORAD Basic Infrastructure Project, the housing that we're looking at is the temporary housing for troops when they come north. The other housing for Canadian Armed Forces organizations in the north is the responsibility of Canadian Forces Housing. But I'm taking notes, and I'm going to take that back to them in Ottawa, and I know that they come up and visit and they talk, so more to follow, but I don't have, that one is out of my lane.
Chloe Powder, Northwest Territories Métis Nation. My question is in follow-up to the northern hiring question and answer that was given earlier. Are there, for the contractor and subcontractor and subcontractors, are there going to be conditions in the contracts for northern hire or percentage of northern hires? And to go along with that, if they don't meet those criteria, are there penalties going to be built into the contract so that they highly encourage those contractors and subcontractors to make sure that northerners are going to benefit from all the work that's going to be generated? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. We can't detail what is in our contracts or what will be in subcontracts. The subcontracts are very far away from here right now, and what is that in that RFP that is going to be coming out, we can't share the details because it will be publicly posted for tender, and so we can't give any further information of what is included or not included in that at this time.
I would offer that the part of the capital assistance program has involved some transfer of funds to the city for specific projects. It was described in the media a few weeks ago with respect to water and sewer road to the airport. Those funds are coming directly to the city, and we will be handling the tendering process or the contracting process for that. And we will be looking to make sure that we do so to make sure that there's maximum local benefit, including in Indigenous procurement possibilities. So that is over and above what was just described in terms of the major contract, but and that is admittedly a much smaller portion of the dollars to be spent, but dollars nevertheless that we'll be working hard to make sure that stay in the community. Yes.
Hi again. You can blame my mom. She always told me to ask questions. But it's kind of a follow-up to what Sarah said earlier. We have a lot of young people in high school in Delo, Detta, and Yellowknife. And 14 years is a long period for a project. So I'm just wondering, as our youth grow up and we can encourage them maybe into different jobs, other than construction, are there jobs that you foresee coming to support D&D so that perhaps our young people that aren't going into the trades, they might need jobs in the next 5 or 10 years as they're graduating? Merci.
They're recruiting. So that's a good job opportunity. Yeah, so again, we only know a little bit about this project, and so we don't want to foresee we're going to need X number of this type of job and X number of that. We do know that after the construction there will be operation and maintenance jobs, but again, we don't know, we can't foresee exactly X, Y, and Z. So we will keep communicating with you as we know more, and as the project gets further and actually has a lot more information to share, but thank you.
Hi, Stephanie, on that one, and this is one not for this project team, but sort of, it's an interesting conversation that the city's been having with Department of National Defense and the federal government, and these lovely people are just some of the many that we've been communicating with, and an example of how many is ourselves and the cities of Whitehorse and Iqaluit now have sharing a spreadsheet of the different contact points we all have to see who's talking to whom and about what. One of the things we have flagged, and I would encourage all of you in this room to do the same as you're talking to your MLAs, talking to your MP, talking to anybody else in the community that matters, is this is the perfect space for the secondary school education and post-secondary, and the opportunity around Aurora College in the future, for Fort Smith, for Yellowknife, for Inuvik. And this is the kind of planning that has to start now. So while it's wildly out of the city's authority and control, it is something that obviously we see that opportunity as well. And we've heard it from community members at the municipal level already. So I see some of the MLAs in the room. I think that's a great, I see a thumbs up already from some of them. It's an exact space for that kind of conversation. And those things need to start being thought of now. So I'm glad you're thinking of them already. And that's the kind of conversation that outside of just what's happening at the airport, this sort of long-term, how do we build something that's stronger and more sustainable for Yellowknife and the NWT? That's what we need to be talking about. Thanks.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It's a blessing for you guys to be here. My question is, have you guys had a chance to do any traveling out on the highway?
No, we haven't been out on the highway, but last night we were out on the ice road. So, no, we haven't been on the highway, I'm sorry.
It's your final chance to be on the ice road, but if you do get a chance to get out on the highway, either between here and Detta or possibly even little trip down the road to Delo even, I think you might find it very interesting. Have fun turning around your truck. Anyways, one of the things I wanted to mention was that if you were to travel between here and Betchico, which is only an hour and a half out of our city, you will not have any kind of cell service. I don't know if you're aware of that. Crickets. So this has been an ongoing thing, and to me, it's very concerning, and it's almost dangerous, because in a state of emergency, all our vehicles will be literally lined up from here to Betchico just to get out of town, and you will not have any cell service. So this is very concerning. Also, the only gas station between here and Enterprise is the Big River. So I can't see you guys lining up at all. And that's also a very big question in my mind. Like, what kind of infrastructure is going to happen between the Alberta border and Yellowknife itself, as opposed to Yellowknife and our northern borders?
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a crack at this. So there's no question going to be wider infrastructure implications on the whole territory as a result of this maneuver. You're not going to drop $5 billion into Yellowknife and another $5 billion into Inuvik and sort of sneak out and not think there's going to be an impact on the rest of our territory. So those are live questions, and those questions are, all governments are going to be turning their attention to what the consequences of this might mean for the population, including the city of Yellowknife. But that statement, that impact on the wider territory and our infrastructure, including health services, which has been mentioned, roads has been mentioned, cell service is an excellent one that hadn't been mentioned yet, but certainly power, all of those things are not insignificant. And so we're grateful that D&D was able to come and talk relatively early in the process about their specific footprint impact here in the community, but the wider impacts are going to be questions that'll go beyond the group that's assembled here tonight, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. With that, I think we have one more question. Oh, sorry, my mistake, Melissa. I missed somebody. I apologize.
Thank you. So this is a big project, obviously, and a lot of resources are required. So most of us in the room live here, and I hope everyone can stay for as long as they want in Yellowknife, should they choose to do so. But we need resources to stay here. So can you speak to plans to ensure the same or better access to resources, and by extension pricing, for resources such as groceries and fuel remains here for Northerners rather than going towards the project and making sure prices go up?
I was going to give that to the mayor, but that might be career limiting. I think I lasted longer than the last one, but anyway. So all this to say is that there's going to be certainly significant impacts in the community, and those questions, and there's a number of one, and I think the term that has been used a few times by some very knowledgeable people that are in the room, many of whom ask questions around socioeconomic impact, and that's the term that sort of catches all of the collective impact of what I think the point you're getting at. That will need to be kind of thought through. Certainly. If you've got a shortage of land, you're going to have an increased price. If you have a shortage of housing, you're going to have an increased price. If you have a shortage of roads, you're going to have an increased price in terms of getting things there. So there are some knock-on impacts that definitely need to be taken into account by government and all levels in order to make sure that we're able to accommodate. And we'll continue to chew on that. But certainly with I'm very grateful for the conversations that we've had so far in the relationships with several departments of the government of the Northwest Territories and other parts of the federal government. Did you want to go a little deeper? Yeah.
I guess my question is more so about things we buy and use every day, like groceries and fuel, rather than land and housing and such.
Well, thank you for that, and I apologize if any of you have gone 40,000 feet when it was only a 100-foot question. So from a community perspective, D&D has been excellent in mobilizing and organizing their resources. They've got their own supply chains. They make sure that they're not taking from the community. They've had a number of operations that have been across the north, including a very significant one. In each and every case, there's a significant amount of logistics planning that goes into those kinds of operations to avoid exactly what you're describing, and also to make sure that they're able to start and finish and complete their effort. I hope I didn't overstep. Okay, thank you very much. I understand they're recruiting, so.
For the capital assistance program, do you have those organizations, businesses, whatever it may be, have those already been identified for what, like who's going to take advantage of that? Or is it something that you're still kind of looking to see who could benefit from that? And if so, is there criteria that you're looking for to be met as part of that?
Thank you very much. So the short answer is yes. We're already engaged with the Government of Northwest Territories in the airport for the runway extension and the construction of taxiways. So we've already attributed money to the Government of Northwest Territories for the design work of the extension and the runway. So they are the first beneficiaries of capital investment funds towards that construction. The criteria is, let me put it in these words, it has to be of a dual benefit. So it benefits the community, or in this case the airport, but the airport also serves the community, and then it also benefits the military operations that will be conducted at the airport on the forward operating location. So that's the dual benefit of the capital assistance program, is that we're doing stuff for the community and for the military operations. The other organizations that we've been speaking with is the city in terms of the waterworks. So to get that clean water to the site, wastewater management to get that wastewater away from the site, and then the electricity. So as I mentioned earlier on, this week we've met with NACA Power, we've met with the Tallston Hydroelectric Project and NTPC to discuss opportunities. So we have to take that now to the next step and see how those investments can be made, because it has to have that dual benefit to serve the greater community and serve the Department of National Defense. Thank you.
Excellent. And last question.
Okay. My question dealing with the security clearances. I was in the forces, and I had a different level of security clearance, but depending on what phase and what building or facility is going to be put up, and if there's any contractors or subcontractors, if they need a higher level security clearance, that takes a long time. So is there going to be an office here to assist with potential workers or contractors to do that, or are they going to be expecting to get on a link online and try to figure things out, which again could cause issues for northern residents themselves? So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. That's one of the benefits of having a modified design build contract, is we're going to have that contractor on board really early in the process, so well before construction happens. So we will have some time to support businesses and subcontractors through that process. We are actively looking and at opportunities and what that could look like for supporting businesses. We will have further information once we have our modified design builder who will help develop that plan on supporting businesses. But there is some time right now, and we do know that the process does take a while, so we will be planning that into our plans.
Thanks. I appreciate that some of the responses haven't been as precise as I would like, but and some of them are about fairly general or broad impacts this project could have. That's the value of having somebody independent look at this, like the Mackenzie Valley Environmental Impact Review Board, and having an environmental assessment. So it gives an opportunity for commitments to be firmed up, questions to be asked, responses recorded, terms and conditions imposed on the project to make sure that benefits stay here in the north, and that there's some lasting benefits for the community. So I just want to make sure that DND is not looking to exempt this project from that environmental assessment process that we have established here over a number of years and negotiated and constitutionally protected. Thank you.
Yes, so the project will be following all regulatory processes and permitting processes that are applicable to our project. So we do value all of those processes.
Not exempt. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Okay, well, that kind of gets to the end of our questions for this evening. I'd like to actually thank everyone for coming this evening, and thank you for your thoughtful questions. Just a couple of reminders, the presentation is available on the City of Yellowknife website. We also have recorded this event. We'll make it available so that people can have it and look back over what we said, and including the last statement and whether or not we're committed to, or they are committed to the regulatory processes here. In terms of the questions, the themes were pretty broad-based. I won't go through all the themes, but absolutely there was several questions with respect to local procurement and local benefit occurring to local businesses and personnel and trades. We certainly had a significant number of questions around the potential socioeconomic impacts on health services and other infrastructure related to our community. There was a number of questions with respect to housing and the housing impact, both short, medium, and long term. We've looked at the question of operating costs and saddling Yellowknifers potentially with a larger tax bill down the road. So we definitely heard that this evening. There was questions with respect to continued and ongoing engagement with First Nations and Indigenous partners in the area with respect to this project, and I think there was a number of reiterations of commitment with respect to that. And I believe there's been some novel ideas and suggestions that were made throughout tonight that I know D&D will take back with them. With that, I'd like to thank D&D for your availability, presence, and candor in terms of your plans. And it's been a full week that they've committed to the community, and we are very grateful that they came to the City of Yellowknife's Governance and Priorities Committee on Monday to kick it off and to give council the first crack at the grilling that they had throughout the week. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you all for coming tonight. And if you have any other questions, the information is available there. And of course, you know how to find the city. Yes. You sure can. Yeah.
Thanks. So as I'm listening to all of this, it takes me back to when I was a kid. My parents, my father, my uncles, they were in World War II. Canada was hugely respected for what it could do in wartime. And then we have lived for decades now. The safety that we have as Canadians and strong political structure and good lifestyle and all that. So it gets me to, my question is this, and I've been thinking about this all through the evening. We got a presentation here that takes us 15, 20 years down the road. And what I'm wondering about is this, how certain, like we're living in dangerous times. Things are happening now that I wouldn't have believed it 5 years ago, but it's reality. And we got a president to the south who keeps rattling our chain about 51st state. Canada's not going to let that happen. One way or another, it's not. But my question is simply this. How sure are you folks that the plans that you've got in place now are going to stay in place? And how sure are you of the cost? Like, we all got to be prepared to reach into our pockets if things change, and especially if things get worse than they are now. So I don't know how much you can say about that, but you know, my hat's off is to all of you. The Canadian military is highly respected all around the world, and you guys are doing a job to make sure it stays that way. So that's my question.
Yeah, thanks for your question and observation, sir. So absolutely, the Prime Minister, as I'm sure you're well aware, made announcements across the country. The CDS, our Chief of Defence Staff, has also been speaking about this. So we are full speed ahead in getting prepared for whatever may come. That's what we do. As for the long-term commitment for funding and for the project itself here in the north, as George was speaking to earlier, we've been allocated funding, and then we have to go back. Royal Canadian Air Force is currently doing their requirements, so for each piece of the project, we have to go back with our requirements, get them validated, and then get them approved, and we take them to see what they can build for us, and then we take it back up to the higher levels to get approval to spend the taxpayers' dollars. So it's a top priority, and it is funded. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And thank you all for your participation tonight. There is media availability for the presenters that will be getting organized shortly after we wrap up and move on. So I want to thank the media for their patience. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your ongoing interest in this. There will be more to come. We'll keep you all updated. And with that, I wish you all a good evening and a safe ride home.